Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to Prime Hour on My Media Prime. This evening, we have two topics to discuss on the 37th anniversary of the CPDM party. Looking at its balance sheet is going to be our second topic for tonight, but we are starting with the prevailing shortage in basic food commodities that is leading to price increase, especially with flour that has caused bread prices to rise. We are looking at what needs to be done as far as Cameroon is concerned to boost production, local production. Do we have to boost cassava flour production, potato flour production to be able to meet the demands of our respective bakeries so that bread does not cost more than it is supposed to in our market? We're discussing this with our panelist, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, our permanent consultant, is in the house. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening, Cameroonians, and welcome to Prime Hour today. Good evening, my co-panelists. It's another time for us to share very important point about the hike in prices of basic commodities as well as the 37th anniversary of the CPDM ruling party. Stay glued to your screen as we educate you tonight on how to help yourself within this challenging period.
We're also expecting the arrival into our studio of Dr. Simo Marcelle, who should be representing the CPDM party on this platform. But all the way from Yaoundé to participate in this edition of the program is Dr. Tata. Dr. Tata is the CEO, vision bearer of what is commonly called Afro-Brains Cameroon. They are doing a lot of transformation of local organic food that is produced in Cameroon. Dr. Tata, good evening, welcome.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah,
and it's always a pleasure to be on Prime TV, and I really appreciate the opportunity, especially when need be, in a situation like this where we all know that there's a difficulty. So it is time for us to express ourselves, to reiterate the vision of Afro-Brains. Thank you.
To Richard Munang to join us through Skype from Kenya. We hope that he joins us. The network is not too good, but we are starting with you, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. When you go through the markets and you see people already grumbling about the hike in bread prices, there are possibilities for other goods, basic goods that we consume from our farms to also witness increment in their prices. Are you comfortable or you are alarmed by what is happening?
Mr. Leo, I'm alarmed, and to me, every challenge only brings the best out of people, if only they can think well. I don't see challenges as obstacles to the next level. I see challenges as stepping stones to the next level. The hike in prices of basic commodities is not just a Cameroonian problem. I was in Abuja recently. The same thing is hitting Nigeria. A friend of mine called me in Germany and said there was a rise in prices in this January in 2022 by 4.9% in Germany. So it is a global challenge. Now, every individual handles his or her challenge based on the pressure that thing places on you. I think as of now, Cameroonians have to understand that this increase in prices of basic commodities, for instance, like flour that we have as a serious challenge right now, is just a clarion call for us to get a substitute. You know, in economics, there is something we call substitute. Substitutes are products that can replace other products when they are not available in the market. I think this situation is also going to push us to think better and get better. Cassava flour is not something that is, for instance, produced in Cameroon today or yesterday. It's been years since, but never valued. I think this one is a call for us to start placing value on the things we have, because I have known cassava flour since, I've known potato flour since, but it has not been given attention. It has not been given, how do I put it, value as it's supposed to be given.
Yeah, but when you live amongst people, what is the feeling you gather from them with respect to what is happening, especially on bread prices?
People are very, very disappointed. People are not happy, they are not comfortable. And what I'm trying to say is, I don't want to be emotional. Most of the times when things happen in a country, it is easier for us to throw blames on people, failing to understand that we could be the reason for that problem. You know, when you see people always being responsible for a problem and you don't see your own role you play in that problem, you are a trouble to the society. There are persons that will always heap blames on others, not knowing that they are practically part of what is happening. If at all we had placed value on the things we produce here, because I'm telling you, producers can produce. There is a consumer that will determine if the producer will still keep on producing. People have attempted producing flour. Look like Afrobrain has produced cassava flour long. It's not something that came today.
There is achu flour.
There's achu flour. There's konkon flour.
There is
waterfufu flour. Yeah. Yes. So it's been there. You and I have had a taste of those things when they were distributed. No value was placed on it. This is because there is a mindset, the way we have been shaped. We have been shaped to understand that if rice does not fly from Thailand and come to Cameroon, the rice is not good. To the best of my understanding, I've eaten different kinds of rice, or meme kase, Uncle Ben's rice, parfumerie. There is no rice as nutritive as ndop rice. I've eaten ndop rice. I have learned how to prepare ndop rice. Ndop rice is very nutritive and very rich. But you see, an impression has been given to us that it is meme kase that has a perfume on it. That perfume adds nothing. I repeat, it doesn't have any nutrients that it adds to that rice as compared to what comes out from ndop. Now, my problem is, why are we oriented to think that things that only come from out of the country are the things that are useful? Why do we think that wheat is richer in nutrients, in minerals, than cassava? Why do we think that wheat that comes from Russia, from Ukraine, from other countries is richer than the potatoes we have here? What is in wheat flour that is not in cassava flour, that is not in potatoes flour? This one goes back to see that, to tell us that we have to learn to educate people to understand the value of things. It's so amazing that a Cameroonian would prefer to eat meme kase because it has a perfume than to eat ndop rice that has no perfume.
Yeah, but ndop rice has a very wonderful taste also.
That's what I'm letting you know, Mr. Leo. It's rich.
Yeah, very rich. Dr. Tata, once again, good evening. But were you a prophet foreseeing what we now live? With the inception and
yes. Brother Leo, thank you very much once again for this opportunity. I think that if you replay the first interview you had with me, and let me start by saying that I wish to appreciate you for the work you're doing, because this is not just sound we are putting out there. This is not just propaganda, but this is real life. You see, the work you have been doing at Prime TV, I want to really thank you, because you are not just, you see, this is evidence. This is not about Afrobrains alone. This is about the work you're doing. Because if you brought this thing out, you identified. If you did not see something good in Afrobrain the first time you accepted Afrobrain to put it out there to the people. So this is not about me being a prophet. This is about the fact that the time that you got into it, you saw that there's value in this thing, and then you made it public. It could have stayed in my mind until I died. But because you were able to identify that this thing has value, let everybody share in it, then it actually gave it the value that it deserves. So this is something that is important. You see, in Cameroon, we can feed ourselves. It really hurts me very much when I read in different readings that I come across, some people insinuating that Cameroon needs help. I see some people insinuating that Cameroon needs some assistance as far as this issue of wheat flour is concerned. The truth is, we really did not. We really do not need any help. We do not need any help. Why do I say that? Because Cameroon produces a lot of products that can very much be substituted, just as the apostle said, very much be substituted for wheat flour. Of course, I cannot sit here and say that cassava flour can directly substitute wheat flour, because wheat is actually a grain but cassava is a tuber. So the chemical composition of wheat is actually very different from the chemical composition of the tuber of cassava. But we can always produce a blend, just like what Afrobrains is doing. That is why I'm saying that it's not rocket science. The wheat is an opportunity. The lack of wheat flour in the market, or the rise in the price of wheat flour in the market, is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the local companies like Afrobrains Cameroon to, because we've had a lot of situations whereby local companies have not been given the respect and the recognition that they require in order to rescue the nation in difficult situations like this. So I just believe that this is an opportunity that has come for Cameroonians to recognize that we have the capacity and the possibility and the knowledge to be able to feed Cameroonians with what is produced locally. I would look at this opportunity, this situation, as an opportunity for Cameroonians to look inward. Because, Leo, if you ask yourself, why do Cameroonians import wheat flour? There is no scientific reason, there is no logical reason why we actually import wheat flour into Cameroon. Because if you look at the health implications, cassava flour, sweet potato flour is far healthier than any flour that can be imported. So the question is, why do we import wheat flour into Cameroon? Now, it's difficult to answer that question because there is no answer, actually. So I think this gives us an opportunity to begin to build our taste. Just like Apostle was saying, we have built our taste to match or fit products that we actually do not produce. That is why Afrobrains is coming out to say that let us be able to learn to eat what we produce and produce what we eat. So for now, that is what I can say.
Today we are faced with wheat, but do we also believe that most of what our brewery companies are using are imported when we would have produced them from Cameroon and then supply them to these companies? Because what if tomorrow some of these countries where we import these raw material from are also faced with what Ukraine and Russia are faced today?
The Englishman said once bitten, twice shy. Mm-hmm. I'm very, very convinced that things are happening for us to wake up from the slumber we've been in for many years. Mm-hmm. I'm very, very convinced. I'm sure this situation happening, every minister in the country should look far beyond the horizon and understand that in some years to come, the sources we are depending on for basic commodities might not be there to supply for us consistently. Mm-hmm. Let us create a defense mechanism whereby back at home, like what happened in ancient Egypt, Joseph said in 7 years' time there's going to be abundance, and the next 7 years will be dryness. Let's create a defense mechanism to do what? Let's plant this year, harvest, and store the food in order to preserve us for the next 7 years of famine. That is what every nation is supposed to do. We are totally dependent. That is the danger. The danger in everyone's life, even individually, if you are totally dependent on individuals, institutions, governments, or parastatals, your life is at a risk. Like you work in this place, your life cannot be totally dependent on this place. That is a risk. My life can't be dependent totally on what I do. I must have multiple streams where I can lean on. So our government should start creating a defense mechanism in this country whereby the things we so much import outside, we should create substitute of those things in this country. In case there is a problem somewhere, America has a reserve. If they stop giving fuel today in America, America has kept reserve. That's a defense mechanism that they can run that fuel in their country for the next 50 to 100 years. That's the proactive nature of every country. Individuals, governments, they have to start thinking proactively to make sure that in case tomorrow we don't get this thing from this source, what are we going to do? This is what we are going to have.
What if we can no longer import fish? How do we survive?
We can grow fish, Mr. Liu. We can grow fish. People are doing fish farming at a very minor scale. That's my worry. My worry is that it's being done. There is a nautical center for fisheries around Sokolo in Limbe. It's a school. They train people to do fishing there. It's a school you call it's a fish and animal husbandry. You go there, you are being trained. My problem is, why is it that we are not investing in this particular thing? I'm sure subventions and incentives are supposed to be given the people who are doing this local fish farming to do it at a very wider range. I was watching a preacher in Nigeria, Jeremiah Motofi. He has 7 million fishes. 7 million. He has built fish ponds in his compound, and you can see fishes there, and he throws feed on those fishes everywhere, every day. And you see the fishes are swimming from here to there. That is an individual's investment. If at all 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 persons do such investment in Nigeria, in case there's no fish coming again from Japan, Norway, and any other country from Europe, they can rely on home-based productions. And that is where we have a serious challenge here, because we just lean totally. For instance, Mr. Liu, if at all we don't get fuel from outside, we cannot get fuel. There is no local means we are processing the fuel we harness from this nation. It's dangerous. Yet our fuel lives here. People say we have Sonara. Sonara does not refine fuel. They
refine.
They don't.
They refine. It is a refinery, but it buys crude from the world market and then refines it and sells.
And sells back here.
Yeah, what the crude that is produced in Cameroon is sold to the world market.
Sold to the world market. Why don't we produce? Why don't we produce? How does this sound?
They say our crude is heavy. Our crude is heavy, so that cannot refine it. Yes.
You produce crude here, you sell to the world market, you buy from there, and then you refine here.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Is this not witchcraft? I mean, these are things we are supposed to start developing means on how to refine raw crude from here directly. So that in case these people don't have anything to supply us tomorrow, because if things get worse, I'm telling you, most of those countries will keep the reserve for themselves. What they are selling in the world market is the excess. They will always take the excess to the world market. And now if things happen like what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, where that excess is no longer there, they will keep what they have for themselves. That means every other country depending on them is in danger. Now, why don't we always create a reserve? In a football team, we have a reserve. If the players are in the field, there's always a reserve. If the player is not doing well, they send somebody. That reserve is supposed to be everywhere. It is a modus operandi that has operated in many years in life, from Bible days till date. So we cannot totally depend on what is outside. Fish people, I've seen local farmers doing fishes here. They are doing fishing. They are growing fishes in their private ponds. Why don't we invest in that area? Why don't we? We have vast land in this country. Do you know that China now produces gari? China sells gari to Cameroon, something they had never done in their lives.
Now, Dr. Tata, what is it that you are? Yes, what are you doing at your level to come to the assistance of Cameroonians, so to speak? We have discussed this severally, but can you tell Cameroonians what you can do in the face of what we now have before us?
Yes, thank you very much. I should be talking about what we are actually doing currently, because the whole situation about the wheat flour took all of us this way, the way it is. Of course, we at AfroBrains, we all knew that these things will come up, because you remember that AfroBrains is an initiative that came up during the coronavirus period. So during the coronavirus period, it taught us a lesson. You see, if you don't learn from your past, you're going to fall into the same whole problem again over and over. The problem could only change its color, but it wouldn't change its shape. Sometimes it could change its shape, it wouldn't change its color. So the whole thing is that during the coronavirus, we realized that Africa was becoming isolated. Can you imagine that we have an Africa, especially a Cameroon, that does not have any possibility to import food? Can you imagine coronavirus sustaining 3 years, borders blocked? How do you think Cameroon is going to survive if the borders were blocked? And then Cameroon, with all the billions and percentage of import food that it has, how would Cameroon survive? Sometimes when we talk about some of these things numerically, then we realize that some of these things, it's going to give us the reality of what we are living right now. So what I'm saying is that AfroBrains had already had all these figures. Remember, if you replay past programs, you would notice that I had mentioned to you that I read some United Nations documents especially the documents related to food security in Cameroon. And the description that was given to Cameroon about food security, I wasn't comfortable with, because I couldn't believe that the same Cameroon that I know is the Cameroon that was being described as a country which is in hunger. So I couldn't believe it, because I know that Cameroon is Africa in miniature. Cameroon is very fertile. Cameroon, the fertile soils of Mount Cameroon, and all that language that we all know. So Afrobrains came into play because all these natural resources, not petroleum, but just the soil. Remember that 60% of the arable soil on the planet of Earth is found in Africa. Remember that 60% of Cameroon's population is less than the age of 25. And remember that Cameroon has a whole chunk of unexploited land. With all this knowledge, it doesn't require a genius to know that production of a local material transformation or mechanization of agriculture is one of those things that we can do in order to change the state of the nation. So that is why Afrobrains got into the picture. So our idea or our initiative was to mobilize the young people, was to mobilize the farmers, was to put the farmers together to see how we can begin to produce those things that we import. And one of those things that we realized that we import a lot was, can you imagine that Cameroon imports 900,000 tons of wheat flour every year? This 900,000 tons, if this money was distributed amongst the local, the companies that are involved in the cultivation and transformation of local products, this would kill a lot of jobs in Cameroon. So, but we choose to import them, however. So I noticed that that's what Cameroon was doing. 900,000 tons of wheat flour. And guess what? Out of these 900,000 tons of wheat flour that Cameroon imports every year, about 580-something thousand tons of this wheat flour actually comes from Russia. That's interesting, isn't it? So when we realized that Russia was actually getting into war, hey, we didn't have to be geniuses to notice that there would be a problem in Cameroon. So, and guess what? The problem is not going to end now. Possibly in the next 2 to 3 years, prices of wheat is going to be increasing. You see, like I said, out of the 900,000 tons, about 500 and something thousand tons are coming from Russia. Some come from Ukraine. Of course, some come from Canada, some come from Italy, come from the United States of America, and so on. And when we establish these numbers, we see that it's unreasonable. It's really unreasonable that we can be importing these products when we can do it locally. So Afrobrains, just like any other company in Cameroon that is involved in the transformation of our natural products, continue to emphasize. You see, Afrobrains produces foods that are our local foods. Achu flour, for example. Achu flour is one of those products that Cameroonians consume a lot. Watafufu flour, we do produce that, and so on. Koki flour. Why do we want to do this? We want to do this because we want to call the attention of Cameroonians that we can eat what we produce and we can produce what we eat. You see, it's possible for us to have converted the cassava to other products. We could convert cassava to something that Cameroonians don't consume. We could also convert the beans, the koki beans, to something else that Cameroonians don't consume. But guess what? We decided that we want to tell Cameroonians, we want to begin to have this conversation with Cameroonians, that we can produce the things that you consume. And what's the difference between what you have been consuming and what we are producing? The difference is that we are making it healthier. We are making it easier for you to produce it into food, like fast food, you know. We are making koki, for example. Instead of koki being something that you have to go to the mill, you have to do all that work, we are making it easy for you to just be able to do it fast and go to work. And we are making food so fast so that we people would not be sitting and saying that I'm cooking this or I'm cooking that or I'm cooking this. So cooking of food is just going to be something that is very short.
Your method is fast. You do koki flour, you do achu flour, watafufu flour, and some people may really want to be guaranteed or to be sure about the quality of what they are consuming, because they may feel that, okay, if it does not go through the natural process that they know, it may, the nutrients and others may be missing in what they're consuming. How do you guarantee that?
Yeah, I mean, we make it through the method. For example, let me give you a typical example. Our cassava flour, we do not just take cassava and convert it into flour. Remember that sometimes they stay like 2 years and so on. We've all grown. This is not something that somebody is going to teach us. This is something we grow into it. So in order for us to reduce the amount of cyanide which is in cassava, because cyanide is poisonous, it can poison the respiratory system. In order for us to reduce the amount of cyanide in our cassava, what we do is that we steep the cassava. When you steep the cassava, it breaks down the cyanide. When it breaks down the cyanide, then we convert the cassava into flour. We convert cassava directly into flour. That becomes our cassava flour. And what have we done to the cassava? Because you see, when the white man writes about cassava, the white man says that cassava is not this because there is cyanide in it. But the white man forgets to understand that even our great-grandparents already knew about cyanide. Our great-grandparents would harvest cassava, they would put it into the ground, they would bury it, they would keep it for a couple of days, and then before they can be able to use the cassava. There's nothing new under the sun. What we are simply doing is that we have modernized the method. So we peel the cassava, we put it for some time, and then we do the same thing our great-grandparents used to do. A little more hygienic, a little more presentable, a little more nice looking to the eyes. It's the whole same science. So the same thing holds for other flours. Watafufu flour, we steep it, a little more longer so that it can be able to get softened. And remember that when you ferment cassava, it becomes healthier. Of course, for obvious reasons, it reduces the amount of cyanide in it. So what we're saying is that the hygienic methods, the hygiene in the procedures that we use are the best, because we know the situation. Take for example the current situation that we have in Limbe and in Boya about the cholera and the water and all those things. Those are things we have spoken about. I think if people should listen to the previous programs we've been having, I've been talking about the poor conditions of our products, of our food products in the market. Take watafufu in our local markets, for example. How do you see watafufu in our local markets? You will notice that it is put in a pile, and sometimes those who even are conscious, some papers, and it is not hygienic. It's not hygienic. That is why some people have concluded that they don't eat watafufu anymore. Some people have said that watafufu gives typhoid, and all those things. It's not true. The truth is that when it's not handled carefully, when you go to the market and you buy it on the roadside and all those things, you will have those problems. That is why Afro Brains has come in.
Okay, Doctor.
Afro Brains transform.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Tata is not the only person who is struggling to make sure that Cameroonians eat what they are produced in Cameroon. How do we get what they are doing to be able to meet the demand of the Cameroonian population? Because what they're doing may be, the scale may be smaller, but when we talk of mass production, it needs heavy investment. Is this the time also for government to identify persons like this in Cameroon and actually engage with them so that they can know how they can get into mass cassava flour production, massive potato flour production, and a host of others?
Yes, Mr. Leo, you know, the growth of a country is dependent on the intellect and wisdom of the citizens,
Okay.
not intellect and wisdom of government officials. If at all we start making use of government, of the citizens of the country, not a particular group of people, we're going to go far. I'm saying this because there is the vice president of Zambia some years back. It's called Nevas Mumba. The president listened to him over the radio and found that he was very intelligent and useful for the economy. He appointed him prime minister without any protocol, no political party inclinations, no attachment to any political party. When such brains are in the country and in moments like this, I think Americans are so smart to the extent where they use even prophets for investigations, because what they want is result. Every country that is not result oriented, we start selecting people based on political ties to use them. In moments like this, we are supposed to look into the country and find out individuals who have this initiative, because the initiative is there. Now it depends now the rate, the scale of production. If you want Dr. Tata to produce 200 bags of cassava flour or potato flour, he will do it. But he might not have the resources, he might not have even the machines needed. This is when now the brain is needed, while the government puts the income to make sure that we have this thing produced at a very wider scale. There are also individuals also who are doing fish farming. They have the skill, they have the intellect, they have the ability. Now they do not have the amount of money to invest to produce in a very high scale. This is the time where the government has to look at such talent in the country and invest in order to meet up with the demand, because it still falls back into business. It definitely fall back into business, because the people who are producing those things will definitely sell back and government will still make money out of it. So it is important we start looking the treasurable people. Look, for instance, if you go to the biblical text of Joseph, Joseph was a foreigner. He was a foreigner in the land of Egypt, yet he had the solution. Pharaoh did not go about looking for his countrymen, his tribesmen, his regional men. He looked for who had the solution on ground. So when you are a leader in a country, in moments of difficulties and challenges, find the men. But I have a problem with our situation here. We will definitely want to look those men only within our political cycle, within our political party, within the circle of the government. And those men might not even be the circle of the government, because most of those creative people are not into this politics, this dirty politics we practice in Africa. They are not into this dirty politics. I think we should handpick the individuals in this country who have the solution to the present challenge we have right now, and be able to use them to curb the crisis, because it has to do with brain, which is knowledge, and finances to make the dream become a reality. One man may have the knowledge, another person has the finances. The government will definitely have the money. There are persons who have the brain. Bring them together and sit down. Like Pharaoh will say, let the wise men come and sit down and tell us what is happening. Look at Nebuchadnezzar, say, come down, sit down, what's happening. Kings always call people who had possible solutions to a cycle to ask their opinion, because the government has to invest in the brain of those people who have the ability to expand this thing. For instance, if we start producing this thing at this level, we don't need wheat again. What he said is there's even a rise. Because wheat demand from Cameroon, from Russia in 2018 was 780 tons. Now it is 950 tons. You see, there's an increase every day. Now this increase is a sign of population is increasing and the demand is also increasing. Why don't we look for means to even say, okay, if we are receiving from Russia, it should be half. Let us not take some things out of this country completely, because the day the source will cut off, we will die. That's my challenge. We should always have a backup. America has fuel. America has not exploiting their fuel. They are launching in Kuwait, going to Iran, collecting from all those places. In case those places don't produce fuel anymore, they have something as a backup to fall back on. Let us use these guys who have the knowledge in this country for now to do mass production of this fuel, and then also encourage the people to consume what is being produced here.
Yeah, we have our MPs who are in session year in, year out. They receive ministers. They have ministers of agriculture, finance, and a host of others, economic planning. Is this not also a wake-up call to our MPs who are in session to call the ministers that what is their policy to boost agricultural production, especially at this time where the war is at war?
Mr. Leo, to the best of my understanding, I know the parliament is a place where people don't just go to defend budget. They equally go to defend their jobs. But we see a parliament where people only go there to defend the budget they will collect. They never come back to defend the budget that executes the things. And there is no balance. How can you come to defend money that you will collect? You don't come to defend how you have spent that money. That's where the trouble is. If at all we have experts in the domain of agriculture, as a matter of fact, we do not only need the ministers. There are people in this nation whom we know are agronomists. They have the skill and the talent. As a matter of fact, most of some Cameroonians who are agronomists are working in other organizations out of this country. I know somebody who is an agronomist in the African Development Bank. There's a Cameroonian. Why don't we go out, look for such people in this country at this hour and this moment and bring them on the table and say, we are in a crisis now like this. This is the situation on ground. Let us reason and see how we can be able to solve this crisis. But you see, the shock will fall on the common man because these things are consumer goods. These things are consumer goods and the taxes are falling more on the consumers. Even the rise of prices of basic commodities in Germany is on consumer goods. It's on consumer goods. And the people are the ones who are suffering. We will buy this flour, you are the ones suffering. You go and buy bread in the morning, it's 150 francs. Bread used to be 75. It rose to 100. Now it's 125. From 125, that's going to 150. Now it's 150. We don't know what will happen next year. Who is consuming? It is that child who is going to that kindergarten in the morning that has to drink tea. It's the father that pays the price. Because the man who is the producer produces and puts the tax on that particular bread the child is coming to buy that morning. It means the weight falls back on the consumers. We have producer goods and consumer goods. These consumer goods are affecting that little poor person who is selling granite somewhere to send the child to school.
The wheat has to be transported from
Russia.
From Russia to here.
To Cameroon.
They have to pay the taxes.
Duties.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all of that.
Custom duties.
We have to bear.
We have to bear the consequences. We are the ones buying. Of which, if at all we are getting this, you cannot compare a bag of cassava flour produced by Afro Brain to the bag of wheat flour that came from Ukraine. Because transportation are all added to those things and then custom tariffs. Then now they come to the market and the consumer man is the one that pays the transportation and pays equal to the custom tariff. It falls now on the local man. Who is that consumer? Sometimes somebody does not have his own because why? The consumers are not the business people. The consumers are not the producers.
Okay, while we see, I wait Dr. Simo to join us in the studio and as well as Dr. Richard from Kenya. We stay with the two of you, Apostle Ambe and Dr. Tata. Dr. Tata, you are talking about home production. All of us are talking about it, but there is this issue of meeting the market demand. Can we produce what the Cameroonian public can consume?
I mean, of course, there are people who have this argument that Cameroon cannot produce the quantity of flour that it consumes. Of course, that's not true. That's inaccurate because if you look at what we actually consume, you would realize that the wheat flour that we consume, 900,000 tons of it. It's funny because wheat flour, you wouldn't get wheat flour from cassava flour alone. If you wanted to mimic substitute for wheat flour, you would have to work with baby cassava flour, corn flour. Remember that wheat is a cereal. So that is the reason why wheat cannot completely, cassava cannot completely substitute wheat because cassava is a tuber, wheat is a cereal. So you would need a combination of these. So what I'm saying is that just because we already need a combination to get the equivalent of the wheat means that we can meet it. So there is no argument whether Cameroon can be able to feed itself with the 900,000 tons. Of course we can feed ourselves with the 900,000 tons. If you look at the sweet potato flour production, if you look at the post-harvest loss in sweet potato, if you look at the cassava production, if you look at the post-harvest loss in cassava, if you look at the plantain production, if you look at the post-harvest loss in plantain, and so on, if you study all this data, you would realize that only a joke, somebody who really doesn't have that information, would be peddling such statements around that, oh, Cameroon does not have the capacity. You know what? That's the sentence that's the phrase I was hearing, the capacity to produce wheat flour itself. You know, let me be very blunt, and I'm going to say that Sodeblé, which used to be in the north, which used to be producing wheat, was closed down by importers of wheat. That's the truth about the whole thing. So, you know, the kind of fake as if they want to encourage the cultivation of wheat. Why would you want to encourage the cultivation of wheat in Cameroon when you know that Cameroon cultivates tons of sweet potato, tons of cassavas, tons of other things? Why would you want to pretend as though you want to encourage the cultivation of wheat in Cameroon when you know that the other things that do so well in Cameroon are those things that don't do well in the West? So I think that this whole concept of such shortage of wheat in the market and all those things is all a manipulation. If we want to say that Cameroon cannot feed itself, if we want to say that Cameroon cannot provide flour for its boulangerie or production of bread or whatever that should be, it's something else, you know. I think that some people just want to play over the intelligence of Cameroonians, but I want to make this very clear. Cameroon can produce the amount of flour that it needs for the bread that Cameroon needs. We can do it. Cameroon also has the capacity to produce and even supply to other Central African countries. Cameroon has the capacity. I'm talking about the capacity now. But if it is on those, those figures that people peddle around and those things that people peddle around, you wouldn't get Cameroon is involved in all that. But we can feed ourselves. When I see people talking about the increase in price of wheat flour, I ask myself, why do we even import wheat flour into Cameroon in the first place? There is no scientific reason. There is no health reason. There is no logical or scientific reason why Cameroon imports wheat flour in the first place. If there is any scientist, if there is any nutritionist who has reasons why Cameroon imports wheat flour into Cameroon, the person should come and tell us. Maybe the person should call us, tell us that this is the scientific reason, this is the logical reason why Cameroon should import wheat flour.
Doctor, you say it's possible for Cameroon to provide, actually produce what we need in Cameroon. How do we get there? We need investors like yourself to get to work, or you need boosting from incentives from the government. How do we do that? Should the government also open maybe a bank that can finance such ventures?
Now, in order for me to answer this question, this is a very delicate question, but we have to look at the structure of the market in Cameroon. The market has been captured in such a way that the market has been made to believe. The market has been made to believe that wheat flour is the only flour that can do X and Y and Z. Maybe wheat flour is the only flour that can do bread. When I told somebody that we do bread using cassava flour, the person told me it's impossible. Can you imagine the person told me that I would even win a Nobel Prize if I did bread with cassava flour? Can you imagine this kind of insult to a Cameroonian who eats bread, who eats cassava flour, who eats bread made out of cassava flour every day? Can you imagine this kind of insult? So what I'm saying is that our market has been made to believe that we can only make bread out of wheat flour, that we can only make this out of wheat flour, we can only do this out of wheat flour. That is how our market has been configured. It takes you and I, Mr. Leo, it takes you and I to begin to tell our market that wheat flour is just one of the flours out of a ton of options. There are lots of other options that we can be able to make bread. There are lots of other options we can be able to make cake and so on. We have to begin to educate the industry. You know, we have to begin to reorientate ourselves. How is it possible that we orientate our taste, we orientate our appetite towards goods that we do not produce? That is why Afro Brains Cameroon is here to tell Cameroonians that it is time for us not just to eat what we produce and produce what we eat, but also to eat food as medicine. Because if you do not eat food as medicine, you would one day eat medicine as food. So, as in a nutshell, Cameroon has the capacity, the possibility, the human resource, the intellectual know-how to produce food out of cassava. In fact, to produce bread out of cassava flour, sweet potato flour, all the flours that we know we have the capacity. If it is not being done, it is because there is no national effort tilted towards letting it be done. But scientifically, it is possible.
Okay, we take a short break to continue our discussion thereafter.
It's an early Easter at Canal Plus. On to the 9th of April, buy your HD decoder at 5,000 francs and get a free installation. Experience the Champions League and the biggest football championships. Enjoy the best of movies and series. Make the whole family happy and spend a good time together. Hurry, it's on the 9th of April, so don't wait anymore. See terms and conditions at Canal Plus shops. Offer valid while stocks last.
Welcome back. You're watching Prime on My Media Prime. Dr. Tata was saying earlier on that we have all it takes to be able to be food sufficient, and says it needs the government's willingness to push for that to be realized. But we discover that there are lots and lots of persons who are into this import business, making billions out of it. Can we also see in them the swords for our incapacity to engage in heavy production of agricultural produce? That is, he raised the issue that there are persons who actually discouraged wheat production in the north.
Of course, Mr. Leo, like I said yesterday, there are people who have monopolized particular businesses in Cameroon. Mass production of those things will crumble their businesses. Their self-interest is more important than the interest of the state. For instance, you go to Nigeria, there is a high import of generator sets in almost every home. That is a work of politicians. They make sure that electricity is not properly constructed. Dams are not developed in Nigeria because their business of importing gensets in Nigeria should not collapse. That's a political interest. The same goes to our country. There are people in this country whose businesses, if allowed in this country to be produced at a wider range, it will collapse their businesses. And that's the reason they will make sure they keep fueling the source of their defense so that they keep remaining the monopolists and the alpha and the omega of that particular business. But this goes back to also educate us that we are calling Russian wheat, we are calling Ukraine wheat. We should understand that that particular thing is produced by the state. There are some state productions that empowers the state to a level where individuals cannot gain full control over such things. For instance, you come to Africa, a company like Gazprom. Gazprom is a state-sponsored oil company in Africa. From Russia. Look Oil is a state-sponsored oil company in Africa. New Age is a British state company, oil company in Africa. Freelander is a French. Perenco is a French. I'm asking that what are the state companies in this country that can actually do production and have full control in such a way that individuals should not be managing things that can help an entire nation? That is the truth. Now, if at all the state is managing some certain things, you realize that the way the state will sell to its citizens, it will be more of amenities, like some kind of provision, and then given at a very lower cost. But if individuals are given such powers to sell those things, they want to make hell billions out of it. I know nations where state provide water, electricity, but they put it at a very, very, very minimal rate in order to meet up the needs of the citizens of the country. If the state can take full control and influence over certain things in this country, it will help reduce the stress that the citizens go through.
Yeah, but even if the state were not to get fully involved, if you were to say you are importing wheat flour for the next 20 years on the condition that after that you must have generated enough income to engage in massive wheat cultivation in Cameroon. If you have been importing fish for 30 years, you must have generated enough money to engage in fish farming in Cameroon and a host of others. Why not put this? Because these guys are making so much money.
Mr. Leo, cultivating fish and importing fish, which one is easier?
Yeah, but from the
These
money.
people are lazy. We have a bunch of lazy business people in this country who want the easy way out. Do you want them to cultivate fish farms that others will come tomorrow, learn from them, and go break away and create their own fish farms?
Yeah, but they have imported for 20 years. At least they have made enough benefits.
Why will such powers be given to an individual in the first place? That is the problem, because if they don't give him such impetus, he will not be able to be importing fish in this country for almost 30 years as an individual. No matter the amount of money, people are never satisfied. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs chapter 30 that there are three things who are never satisfied. The womb of a barren woman, the grave, they are never satisfied. No matter how you put corpses under the ground, it will keep on consuming. That's how a greedy man is. There are greedy business people in this country that give them the money, even in their grave, they will still sit and consume. So if we are talking about individuals going to import fish or import flour or import wheat for 30 years, and we are expecting them to be satisfied with money, the last thing you will ever see any Cameroonian tell you is when they're satisfied with money, they are never satisfied. From the old to the young, they are never satisfied with money. Even if they are given such opportunity tomorrow to be the sole importer of wheat in this Cameroon, you will not be satisfied. At the age of 70, you will still be importing the wheat. The problem we are speaking is about patriotism. People have to develop love for their nation. And there are some certain things that the government is not supposed to leave such things in the hands of individuals. It is because we empower individuals a lot in this country at the expense of the masses.
Yeah, we are talking about government engaging a policy to encourage agriculture,
of course,
encourage home production, but agriculture is the backbone of most economies.
Of course.
How do we even understand that it is not given pride of place? We are talking about investments, but we have seen how painful the management of the CDC is going through its issues, that is agriculture, and a host of others. The government is not even doing enough to make sure that existing agricultural enterprises survive.
The strength of these colonial masters is the dependence on African countries on them. The truth is, Mr. Leo, how do you explain that in the days of Amadou Babatura Ayijo, there was a green revolution where everybody was engaged into agriculture? Production of banana, coffee, cocoa rose within that period. There were credit unions where it was the farmers that determined the price of their products in the local market. And then suddenly, that green revolution disappears into thin air, and every Cameroonian begins to feel like it is oil, it is gas.
It's the office.
It is the office. It is civil service. That idea was how were we convinced to think that civil servant or being a civil servant or in the oil field makes you a billionaire? Of which we saw how agriculture gave, first of all, naturally food for every Cameroonian to eat. We are now coming to an extent where Cameroonians don't even have what to eat, as rich as we are. A nation that feeds its citizens first, no matter the amount of income in that country, it will not affect the individuals, because much of the money we are looking for goes back on food. If at all we continue with this green revolution in this country to the extent where food was very common, you and I know in those days it was difficult to move around without having food. There are things we are buying today very expensive. A cup of Gary is 125 francs. I have bought Gary for 10 francs in this Cameroon. How old I am? I have bought Gary for a cup for 10 francs. Now calculate the period I bought Gary. I was buying that Gary being conscious, which means I was already grown up to some extent.
Let's say the past 20 years ago, I bought Gary for 10 francs. Then Gary is 125 francs now. Something is wrong with us. What happened to that season? That cassava was cheap. That Gary was 10 francs. I have bought a rice in this country for 25 francs a cup. When we had the rice production company in Loom there, and the one we had the one in Wada, the one in up there was rice everywhere. We bought rice for 25 francs in this country.
In Sancho.
In Sancho. Now, how do you explain why are those places no longer fertile? Are the brains that manage those places no longer existing? Was there not a transfer of baton to the next generation? Are the people who produce those coffee, cocoa, and the rest, banana, and those, are they no longer there? Are those soil no longer fertile? Because one of the things that Cameroon has been given as a blessing is a good climatic condition. We have a mixture of rain and rainy season and dry season in this country. We have good fertile soils. We have a different climatic condition, and the Middle of Africa. Almost everything grows in this particular Cameroon. Everything grows here. You want to be proud about cocoa and coffee. You go to Saros, you go to Yaoundé, you go to Bafia, you will get cocoa and coffee. You want to be proud of garlic and ginger, onion, you go to the north. You want to be proud of forests, you go down to the east. I mean, what is there? What is missing in this country?
Good evening, Mr. Liu. They have succeeded in making us depending on them for flour, rice, maize, etc. That's why we are suffering today. One day, they will also refuse to sell us their cars and machines. Agbotambe Ferino is writing from Bonaberry. Dr. Tata, you have lived in other countries away from Cameroon. Notably, you've been in China. What is not working in Cameroon? Because all of these countries that are considered developed in technology, they are equally very strong in agriculture.
Thank you, Zalio. I just want to say that first thing is that Cameroonians need to understand that we need to adjust. We need to realize that we have been lied to. We have been lied to when it comes to the taste of things. We have been lied to when it comes to the things that we have fallen, we have desired. Let's take a very practical example: bread. How is it possible that Cameroonians are saying that it's not possible to produce bread with corn flour, potato flour, cassava flour? How is that possible? This is because a certain flour produced from somewhere has been provided to Cameroonians, and Cameroonians have been addicted to this foreign flour. How is it possible that you are addicted to something you don't have and you are happy about it? Don't you realize it is time for Cameroonians to wake up and notice that, hey, the thing that you are giving us, we don't have. Please, let us get to know about what we have. Let us get to eat what we have so that we can farm what we have. That is the thing. And this is the whole issue about wheat flour. I said this before. There is no logical or scientific reason why is importing wheat flour in the first place. Why are we importing wheat flour? Wheat flour is not healthier than cassava flour. Wheat flour is not healthier than sweet potato flour. And I can tell you for sure, because it's what I do, we can produce good bread with sweet potato flour, a blend. We can produce good bread with cassava flour, a blend. We can produce good bread with a lot of our local flours. And I can assure you, all Cameroonians listening to us or watching us right now, that if all of us understand that we have been deceived, that we have been made, just like we are made to consume products that come from other countries, and we are made to be addicted. The truth is, we are not only made to consume those products, but we are made to be addicted. How is it possible that we are trying to convince Cameroonians to consume bread made out of cassava flour when it is what we have? How is it possible that we are in a situation where we are convincing Cameroonians to consume bread made out of sweet potato flour? If Cameroonians have not been addicted, I'm talking about the word addicted, because they have been addicted to what they don't possess, what they don't have, what we don't have. So you see, until we begin to realize some of these things, that people did these things because of economic values, because of economic interest, selfish interest, egoistic interest. Probably some of them are getting old, so they are not paying that close attention like they used to pay before. So the truth is, it is time for Cameroonians to begin to own the food industry. It is time for us Cameroonians to own our food industry. Our food industry is owned by foreign companies. Our food industry is owned by people who define to us what food is, who define to us what good food is. Remember, there's a difference between what food is and what good food is. So it is time for Cameroonians to say, hey, whatever you were saying, I think it holds for our natural foods. That is why Afrobrains is not coming to create food. It is coming to make food available in a healthier form. That's why we're producing achu flour. We are producing sweet potato flour. We are producing cassava flour. We are producing ekwang flour. We are producing kwakoko flour. What are we doing? We are telling Cameroonians that nothing has changed. We are just now embracing. We are now learning how to embrace our natural foods. We are now learning how to go back home. We are now learning how to encourage our own farmers.
Dr. Tata, what we are doing for most of those who are into agriculture in Cameroon is still what is called a subsistence farming. How do we understand that when I was a child, my mom did subsistence farming. She still does same, and a host of others. Things have not changed. What happened in some of the countries where you lived before now? How did they move?
Yeah, in China. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in China, what happens is unity. Unity in cultivation, unity in transformation, and unity in marketing. The farmers who cultivate products are united. They bring all their products together. That makes a reasonable economic value. We are now complaining about the increase in price of wheat flour. We shouldn't be doing that. We should rather be telling our farmers who cultivate cassavas, who cultivate sweet potatoes, we should rather be telling them to team up together and bring their raw materials. Because we already know, we have the data. It's not rocket science. We have the data. We know the quantity of sweet potato flour cultivated in Cameroon. What we are saying is that they should bring it, and that is what Afrobrains Cameroon is doing. Afrobrains Cameroon has created a platform. Farmers are already together. So what do we need right now? We just need the possibility to have access to the market. Let me tell you, my brother Leo, the problem in Cameroon is not that we cannot produce. I said this before, and I'm going to repeat it. The problem in Cameroon is that the market has been captured. The market has been captured by Draculas who do not want to release it. Because if you push products into the market, what's going to happen is that those products are not going to follow the channels that normal products are supposed to follow. They're going to put boundaries across all those things. They're going to create definitions that you've never heard before. Trust me, if we have a blend of flour in the market right now, which is something we can have, Afrobrains Cameroon can bring a blend that we say, okay, yes, wheat flour contains a certain amount of proteins. Wheat flour contains a certain amount of starch. Wheat flour we can create a blend of flour that can mimic wheat flour and can produce our cake, our bread, and our everything. We can produce that from our cassava, sweet potato, soybeans, or corn flour. We can do that. If we do produce that, the thing is that you're going to realize that there's going to be a dead silence in the market in Cameroon. Because why? Because there are some people who have decided to capitalize. Do you remember that we had Sodeblé? Sodeblé was a company in Cameroon that was located in the north of Cameroon. Sodeblé used to produce what? It used to produce wheat. Sodeblé was shut down. Do you think that Sodeblé was shut down because there was no possibility to produce wheat in the north? No. Sodeblé was shut down specifically because people saw that it was easier for them to make money by importing wheat flour into Cameroon. That is why Sodeblé shut down. Cameroon imports 900,000 tons of wheat flour
every year. And guess what? This 900,000 tons of wheat flour increases by 30,000 tons every year. What that means is that in the next year, it's going to increase by 930,000 tons. What that means is that every year it increases this way. So why do you think that these people would want to release this kind of business that they have already captured? When they know, you think they don't know? They know. They pre-turn around, they give small cash to small people, and then they take videos and they put on TV that Cameroon is struggling to produce wheat, and then the wheat is not enough. It is a lie. Cameroon can produce cassava, Cameroon can produce sweet potato flour, Cameroon can produce plantain flour. All these various products that can be produced can very much, in combination with grains, can very much mimic the wheat flour that we so much consume a lot. So it is a lie that Cameroon cannot feed itself. It is a lie that Cameroon cannot be able to replace the wheat flour that is being imported, 900,000 tons. It is a lie that Cameroon cannot do anything. We can do it as far as the food industry is concerned. It is our opportunity. It is our opportunity to win the food industry in Cameroon, and that is what AfroBrains is leading.
Okay, that is what AfroBrains is doing. It has been doing for some years now. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, are we not also where we are because the investors are afraid the choice of the consumers' choices are not favorable to home-produced goods? How do we bring Cameroonians to prefer what is produced in Cameroon than what comes from out there? Should it not also start, like I said yesterday on this platform, from our leaders? That is, we have ministers, we have MPs, and the host of others tell Cameroonians that I'm consuming AfroBrains, I'm consuming this which is produced in Econa. This is what we should go for.
Of course, Mr. Leo. How have we been able to pass other information so effectively? We should use just channels. Once the president of this country speaks something, it is considered very serious. You can see how Cameroonians yearn to hear him talk on the 11th of February and 31st of December, because they know he's going to say something that will affect the economy. So I think if it begins from the leadership, they begin to appreciate what is being produced here. And then also there's a power of the media, the power of publicity. One of the things I've realized with Nigerians is that they can produce a juice behind their house, package that juice and put on television. You would think it was flown from a distance to be brought there. And they use the media so strongly to package their products. I think we have to get back to use the power of the image in the country to sell Cameroonian products. You will be forced to use Airtel in Nigeria because of the kind of adverts that come. There are about 6 to 7 different adverts. I think we in Cameroon, we are very poor when it comes to using the media. The media is greatly neglected, and the strength of all these countries we are talking about is the media. Nigeria is the media. Europe, America, CNN is the media they are using to convince us. How do you explain that America is thousands of miles far away, yet we can be in Cameroon? We are so vested with what is happening in America more than what is happening in Cameroon. There are Cameroonians who don't even know how elections take place here, but they will tell you who is winning at what moment in America at a particular time. We are here, you will know that the Prince of Britain has given birth to a son. Meanwhile, our own prince or queen or king here give birth to a child, we have no idea about it. It is to tell you the power of the media. And I think that what we as Cameroonians have to do right now is that we should be giving content that concerns Cameroonian products and giving quality publicity to them. If we consume, because people consume what they watch.
Yeah, if not of course, maybe AfroBrains will not be known.
It will not be, that's what I'm letting you understand.
And there are many persons who are watching today. They have services that they provide. They have many things, and
that is the problem. Yeah. So I want to emphasize on this issue of the media, because we are so brainwashed and carried by the power of the media. By default, you and I sitting here, we hate Kim Jong-un. You've never seen him. You've never met him. He has never touched any member of yours. He has not collected bauxite from Cameroon, nor gold, nor silver. He hasn't collected slaves from this place. The media has given us the impression that he's a demon. That's the power of the media. That's the power of the media. We knew Gaddafi from the European media as a tyrant, a demon, a wicked man, only to find out that African media, even Libyan media, did not tell us the things that he was doing.
But just look at consuming our home beer. I would not want to do publicity for anybody. And Heineken. You
Yes.
discover that both use water.
Yes.
And maybe the same.
Corn. It's
Yes,
corn.
the same. But you see the way Heineken has been brandished.
Because we are watching Champions League. As we are watching Champions League, it's constantly there.
Yes.
Constantly there. And then they will bring one star to publish.
Yes.
That is what we are suffering from in this country. There are a lot of talent. As a matter of fact, from comedy to businesses to brands to different kinds of things are not packaged in this country. And you come to a TV station like this, a program like this is running completely for 2 hours. You have at least 3 to 4 different adverts in Nigeria intercepted. I watch programs in my house. Before 2 hours program will finish, you have about 3 to 4 times advert. It tells you how much the people invest. You'll be forced. I landed in Abuja. I was looking for Biggie water, Biggie juice. What did I see? I saw it in my house here in Cameroon. There may be many other Jews in Nigeria, but I was driven towards Biggie because Biggie has captured me through the image. So we are not using the media in Africa, and that is where we are punctured. That's why we are dead and completely killed. Somebody said, Dakhar Majo said in 1995 that the CNN is the 16th member of the U.S. Security Council. CNN can give you images of things. Like the impression they've given us right now concerning the Ukraine and Russia, everybody hates Russia. Because by default, CNN is telling you that Russia is a demon. And people easily consume it, and they believe it so much that if an advert passes through CNN, it is considered extraordinary.
That the good has more value.
Good has more. People will say, they pass Dangote on CNN, Dangote must be very, 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 very rich. Not knowing that there are things we can do here that the impact will be heavier than what CNN does. But there's a part of mind. Our minds have been framed. So this is where the challenge is. I met a young man in Aqua, and he told me that they are into this importation of all these technophones. He said they are doing publicity. So I told him that if you want to do publicity, there's a TV station that will take you. When you take it, I called my media. I was doing business with him. I was talking. He will come here. The company will come here. Because why? We do nothing practical when it comes to the media. I want to lay emphasis on this. I was in Abuja and I was called up to come to AIT, one of the TV stations. I did not have time to go. I wanted to talk about how European media demonizes our heroes, and then they demonize our heroes, and then they finish they magnify our zeros. That is where we have a serious challenge. I'm telling you, if at all we are investing on the media in this Cameroon as in other countries, there are people who are watching these programs across the nation. My media prime hour is watched across the entire globe. This is a platform where you can put a product here just for 10 minutes. It will blow up. They say we have not caught that revelation. We have not caught it. I was on television. I was in my house. My daughters, my children, they are talking about Minimi, Indomie. I went to Nigeria and said I must bring Indomie. I said it is in the house. My children are following all those things. Why? My son went to the market to go and buy his shoes. So we should buy a Papa True. Papa True is a 10-10. It's a 10-10 because the thing is on television, it captures their mind. That is to let us know the reason why we are lost in Cameroon here and our products are not consumed. They are considered abandoned because we parcel those things and go to local markets and go and keep them there. We don't put them on a platform where it is sold over the world. Why do you love Puma? Why do you love other marks? It's because they put them on different programs on television. You watch English League on Sunday, Barclays, there's Martha there. They are advertising all those things. You'll be forced to consume it. You even change a country, you are looking for a product you saw on television. So I think we have a very serious problem. Serious one. I know of terrible, wonderful talents in this country that are hidden somewhere. There's a young man who just left Cameroon here, went to Nigeria, was given a platform to sing. When he sang there, the whole place took fire because he was given an opportunity to stand on a platform. There are many people watching him. This is where we have a challenge. Talent and skill. A person like me, if I didn't come on my media prime, nobody will know me. Nobody will know me. That is how practically my image has just been blown. So nobody can tell my media. Media has power, and we are very, very weak. I repeat, Cameroonians are very weak. You watch a program like CRT, other television programs in Cameroon, you cannot see adverts. Adverts are very limited. But I'm telling you, you are watching Idol, Nigerian Idol.
Yet everybody wants to sell.
Everybody, how do you want to sell? How do you want to sell? As a matter of fact, Jack Ma became a billionaire by advert. It was on social media. He was sending his people began buying from all over the world. Where did you know Jack Ma? How did you come to know Jack Ma? Until you are knowing his history. This is where we have a problem. I need to lay emphasis on this. We have poor poor, I repeat, poor media presence. In all what we are doing in Cameroon, we have a very poor media presence.
Okay, we'll take some messages. Sir. Good evening, sir. Please, I wish to get in contact with Afro Brains Cameroon. I would like to learn from them. Okay, can you just ask me their numbers after the program? I'll send it to you. Good evening, Mr. Leonard and crew. Thank you for this discussion. Some questions for Dr. Tata. How accessible are your products? Are you ready to mentor others? Can farmers rely on you to purchase their produce for the factories? Francis is writing from my 15 Boya. They are there. They are everywhere in Cameroon. You can count on them. Please just get to me after the program. I'll send you their numbers. They'll get to you. Hello, sir. You people know agriculture is our tradition from Northwest and Southwest region. There is war and all of this zone, and no youth will sacrifice his life to go back home and be doing farm work. If the government do not solve the Anglophone crisis war, the country will never be balanced. Simple. Okay? Yes, adding politics to everything here. Yes. When the parliament of any nation is dormant and break away like what we have in Cameroon, you don't expect miracles to happen. Good evening, is Mola Waka Equili writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Mola. Valentine Agbo says, good evening, it's Valentine Ata Agboara. I will humbly request for Dr. Tata Fon's contact after the program. Thank you. Can you just write to me after the program if you want to get in contact with him? Good evening, Mr. Leo. Since our late former president, Aijo, died, I think he took Cameroon and the government as a whole along because the CPDM in Cameroon aren't doing the job right. So we should forget about the imports and production of bread and the rest of the raw materials in the country. Mr. Jonas, writing from Muyuka. This one says, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Wonderful views from you people in the studio. My contribution goes towards increasing our home-based production to mitigate a reliance on foreign products. I'm sorry to say that what we are discussing here is not an issue of talking in air. We need to grow in capacity to develop projects that can pull foreign investors to invest in Africa. There's no way we can catalyze production in Africa without foreign direct investments. That is why the West are producing in large scale. Nelson Egbe, writing from Boya. Yes, but who is investing in the West for producing what they are producing? I'm sure their governments are injecting money into what they are doing, especially in the US. Mr. Liu, I'm called Pabel. To be honest with you, I know Dr. Tata too well. He's a fine and smart brain we have, but I doubt how would such a talent materialize in the country. Okay. Can Afro Brains produce cassava flour that can satisfy 13 million Cameroonians who live on bread? A bio is writing from Yaoundé. Yes, Afro Brains, alongside others who, like yourself, you may also invest into it and then provide what Cameroonians are consuming. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm watching the show now and I agree with Apostle Ambe. He makes a great point about adverts. Crivet is writing from Boya. Dr. Tata, many persons are asking the question whether you can satisfy the local production, and you have answered that already. But now, do you think that there is a need to also work on our capacity, especially from the agricultural prism? I'm talking about schools.
Yes. Yeah, you know, the Afrobrain's vision already anticipated this, just like the shortage in flour that we are experiencing now by Afrobrain's Cameroon. It doesn't come to us as a surprise. It will not only be limited to wheat flour, it will also extend to other products. So it doesn't take us by surprise. This is not rocket science. There are other economists and other people that already know, but probably they haven't had the opportunity to respond to this question as you are asking to me. So what I'm saying is that yes, Afrobrains has the capacity. we already have a system in place. And how is this system organized? We already have farmers. We have a huge database of farmers and what they produce and the quantity of what they can produce and where they are located. So what this means is that we can already launch campaigns. We can already be able to work with them to produce as much of what they produce already as possible. And if we do this, one thing I should let people understand is that something like sweet potatoes take just about, the Georgia Jet variety of sweet potato, natural variety of sweet potato, takes about 70 to 80 days to mature. I mean, it's not rocket science. This thing is data measured. It is possible for us. We have the capacity that we can be able to absorb the vacuum that has been created by the increase in price. If there is a lower ratio of importation of wheat flour into Cameroon, we can close that. It's possible to close that. There is already a lot of cassava in the system. There is already a lot of sweet potato in the system. Somebody just called me today evening and told me that the person that he has tons and tons of cassava that has already been prepared for export, and we can be able to transform. So there is a lot. This is not, I'm talking about something that has data. So if somebody is contemplating that, oh, Cameroon cannot be able to provide itself with an alternative to wheat flour, if somebody is making that kind of speech, it's just somebody who either does not understand the numbers or just wants to do that so that the companies that are importing, just like Apostle said, the companies that are importing will continue to import. Remember that, how did we get here? We got here because some people wanted to do business. We got here not because we could not produce. Remember that Cameroon is where it is. Cameroon is at the import age of the food chain, not because we cannot produce, not because we do not have farms, not because we do not have people who can work in the farms, not because we do not have seeds, not because of all those factors, but we are where we are today simply because some people wanted to make money by importing from abroad. That is why we find ourselves being used to consuming wheat products. We are so used to consuming wheat products that we have lost the taste of the beauty and the natural and the healthy value that is found in cassava flour, sweet potato flour, and all the flours that we can produce. We have even forgotten that cassava flour is healthier than wheat flour. We have even forgotten that sweet potato flour is healthier. How does it occur? How do we get to this point where people forget that something is healthier than another? It is only an addiction that can take us to that point. It is only when somebody is addicted to something that the person can forget about the health value of the other and then follow the other. Do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that the only reason why we want to consume wheat flour and we are leaving cassava flour and sweet potato flour is because somebody, somewhere, sometime, somehow made us addicted to wheat flour for one reason or the other. How do we know? I have no proof, but I suspect there is no scientific reason why people will leave that which is healthier to go to that which is not healthy. It is because somebody is addicted in the one that is healthier, because there's no scientific reason. I'm waiting for the next scientist that will come to me and tell me that wheat flour is healthier than potato flour. If you tell me that I should produce to you a version, a mimic, we call it, a mimic of wheat flour, I will do that. But if you tell me to produce bread out of my traditional flour, I'll produce it from sweet potato flour. I'll produce it from cassava flour. I'll produce it from what I'm proud of. I'll produce it from what I can produce. I'll produce it from what I can always afford. How did we get from where we can afford? How did we get from where we can cultivate to go to where we cannot cultivate? Does it really make reasonable sense? Does it make logical sense? You see, my brother Leo, I just want to say that I think the time has come for Cameroonians to wake up. The time has come for Cameroonians to wake up, not just when it comes to wheat flour, but Cameroonians should understand that this thing is in all the products. Let me say something in addition to this. Refined oil is not good for the body. Refined oil is not good for the body. Cameroonians think that refined oil means that you are richer. When you buy refined oil, which is neat, which is looking transparent, which is looking golden, and it's not healthy for the body. That is one thing that Cameroonians should understand. Because you see, when we begin to focus on one thing and we think that it affects only wheat flour today, tomorrow it will be the case of oil. Remember that before the festive periods, before Christmas, I think the government put a ban on the export of oil, cooking oil, to be specific. So what that meant is that we were actually running on a short. We were not having enough of it. So are we going to wait until we have a crisis before we start making mention of that? However, just like cassava flour and sweet potato flour, Afro-Brains has that capacity. We have the capacity to produce cooking oil. This oil does not come from space. It comes from our farmers. We have a database of farmers who produce granules, who produce soybeans, who produce sunflower seeds. We are encouraging more farmers to come and meet us so that we can give them seeds to produce sunflower seeds. Why do we want people to produce sunflower seeds? First of all, it's not rocket science. Sunflower seeds produce oil that is healthy, very healthy. You can go and Google and find out the health relevance of sunflower seeds compared to groundnut oil and all the other oils. We produce all these oils. We should begin to. That is why Afro-Brains Cameroon continues.
Okay, we have issues of network there with Dr. Tata. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program. More grace. It's Mary writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, Mary. Glad to read from you. And a host of others writing that. I will just want to take two of them. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all of you in the studio. The only people in Cameroon who have a high media presence are the native doctors. Aki in Bamenda, that is why they are making it big. They're riding big cars, and people wonder why. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Justin from Ambe. It's rather unfortunate that the government in place has and is building this country to be dependent. What does it take to set up a wheat cultivation company by the government? We have a far better climate soil than those who supply us. So it's a matter of mindset, okay? Now, good evening, Mr. Liu. Cameroon produce flour. The problem is the government places high taxes on growing industries. Is Ezopa writing from Moliko, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. Some persons are asking whether it's possible for us to produce and supply and meet the demands of this country. But it was until COVID came that we saw the necessity to produce face masks in Cameroon. Naturally, we thought that to use face masks, it must come from
China, yeah. Like I said earlier, even yesterday, I said it's frustration that brings the best out of people. Until Cameroonians are frustrated, you will not see the best out of them. I wish to ask in the first place that if at all the cassava we produce in this country can suffice the population, transforming it to flour, what's the difference? Except we want to tell us that cassava itself cannot satisfy Cameroonians. Because I think processing cassava is making it even more. If you turn a tuber of cassava into flour, it becomes much than when it's just a single tuber. Now, if the single tuber, which is there, can satisfy the population of Cameroon, you will never hear that there's a scarcity of cassava in this country. I have heard about scarcity of chicken. I've heard about scarcity of fish. I've heard about scarcity sometimes of meat. But I've never heard scarcity of cassava. I'm yet to see that they will read in the news in this country that cassava is short. I'm yet to read that they say plantain is short. I've never heard about that. Scarcity of plantain or shortage of plantain or shortage of cassava. But I've heard shortage of chicken. Why? It's imported. I've heard shortage of fish. Why? It's imported. You realize that those things that we do not produce here and we import, there's always a shortage on the screen of televisions. You go to television and say, ladies and gentlemen, the news reading this evening says that there's a shortage of fish, there's a shortage of chicken. Chicken is imported. Fish is imported.
as well as even meat sometimes. We get frustrated. But you will never hear a day in this country, for all my years I've spent in this country, I've never heard about being read on any news platform or any paper that there's a shortage of cassava, shortage of plantain. I've never heard it. Shortage of potatoes, I've never heard it. Now, if the plantain and cassava have stood the test of time all these years and they were not even processed, now what if we process? Because I think a single tuber of cassava is not compared, it cannot be compared when it is processed. We process things to multiply them. We process things to expand them. We process things to make them become more. And now, if at all we say cassava is being processed into flour, you tell us that cassava, which we have not had a shortage in this country for years, will it suddenly now be lacking to produce the flour? So I don't see where that question is standing on. Secondly, we have other substitutes. We have cassava, we have plantain, we have potatoes. Let's consider that cassava cannot satisfy. Will potatoes not complement? Will plantain not complement? What is wrong with Cameroonians? We have 3 major raw materials to produce the same product. Plantain is a raw material.
And the wheat itself.
The wheat is, we cultivate the wheat. Now we have 4. Let's say we have 4. So how do you tell me that we have sufficient raw material, we have experts who can process it, then we cannot satisfy the population? It's not possible. So it's a brainwash, this brainwash mentality. And you realize that most of the things we do not have here are the things that mostly go short in the market. Yes, we import huge quantity of chicken in this country. We import fish in this country. And I've seen that fish short, goes short, chicken goes short, sometimes even meat goes short. But not cassava, not cocoyam. Except you guys will tell me that you have been in this country once and the news headlines came out that day and say, there's a shortage of cassava in the market. There's no cassava shortage. Yes, because cassava is one crop that grows almost everywhere in this country. You go to the north, cassava grows. East, cassava grows. South, cassava grows. Center, cassava grows. West, cassava grows. I've not seen any part of this country where cassava does not grow. One of those products that grows everywhere in this country is cassava, even plantain. So how do you tell me that we have 3 raw materials of a particular product and then the product cannot satisfy the masses? It's not possible. Nobody should deceive us. The truth is that we have not taken time to sit down. Do you know I studied Cameroon law concerning opening of companies? The government pays back 70% of your tax every year. If you go with the receipt of what you pay as tax, the government will refund you 70% of that tax. But no Cameroonian knows. The reason is that we are totally blind about some of the advantages that we have in this country. That's the truth. That's the reason I see the more I study, the more my scope of reasoning changes. That's why some people think, he's not speaking as he used to speak. No, when you grow in knowledge and you advance in understanding, you will mind the way you speak. That is where the trouble is. So people should be very, 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 very cautious of the fact that a lot of informations have been filtered into the atmosphere, and then we just catch them without having a proper understanding. There is no way Cameroonians cannot satisfy themselves with flour. For your information, we have 3 raw materials in this country to produce a single product. Plantain produces cassava, flour, potatoes produces flour, cassava produces flour. So we have sufficient. Wheat itself in the country produces flour.
Yeah, okay.
So what do you want to tell us? The Cameroonian population can be satisfied with what we have here on ground.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Talking about in transformation, let's first start by looking at Wada in Womb, which was already at the stage of transforming raw materials. Also, TV is very high in Cameroon, so most investors are discouraged to open factories. From Frank is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Frank. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu. I agree with what Dr. Tata is saying concerning wheat, cassava, potatoes, etc. flour, but what worries me is that even if wheat flour is superior in quality, how enough studies have been done to know if wheat can't be cultivated in Cameroon? I know of a long abandoned wheat production projects at Takija in Kum subdivision, that should be in Dunga Mountain division, but can't say what happened as the project was doing well. And I believe that there are other areas with the same climates like Takija. Okay. Pa Emma is writing from Kumbo. Good evening to you, Pa Emma. Actually, there was a wheat farm in the north of Cameroon. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I must say I'm enjoying the program. Abia Kizito is writing from Bamenda too. Okay. Mr. Liu and your team, good evening. We need to have a complete paradigm shift in the area of transformation and production. How can you reconcile the fact that we offer almost for free training on transformation of tubers to flour, preservation of fresh tomatoes, production of detergents and soap, but the class is always empty? Ntatang Ayuk is writing from Limbe. That is the problem, mindset. Yes, because all of these things can be done in Cameroon, but nobody is interested in knowing them. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the great minds. We have to go back to where we lost it. We have what it takes to produce our own flour. Daisy is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Daisy. Apostle Ambe has done an absolute diagnosis of our predicament in large-scale production, which is poor market exposure. Our trained marketers have been blinded by the quest for matricules from government instead of using their expertise to work with the capitalists who on their part do not have the marketing knowledge. By Asanji, writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you. Asanji, good evening, dear panelists. Please, where and how can I get cassava flour? Bishop Ndingi is writing from Douala. Okay, Bishop, can you just get to Dr. Tata and discuss that with him? This one says, if I may chip in something in regards to the topic of discussion, I'll say we need reforms in so many areas. Stop calling, including our land laws, such that access to land can be easier, both for the rich and the poor. Access to land is so complicated such that most often it is the rich that can find their way through. The government should create enabling environment for its citizens and not to its former colonial masters. Truth be told, we should avoid these copy and paste systems inherited from our colonial masters and build systems based on our practical challenges. For instance, the system we inherited from the UK, they built these systems when they had undergone the agrarian, industrial, intellectual, enlightenment, revolutions, etc. So when we got our so-called independence, we just copy and paste. How do we expect for it to work? Another issue is the will from the people running the nation. They should be patriotic and do what are policy for the benefit of the citizens and not for their interest. Okay. I'll take two more messages and we continue. We are Fungum Farms Mekaf Fungum Subdivision, Menchum Division. We are currently baking bread from sweet potatoes since 2020. We have more than 2 tons of potatoes flour in our warehouse. Okay. I'm glad to hear that. I am sure Dr. Tata would like to get in contact with you guys. I've just sent his number to you. You can get to him so that you guys work together. Good evening to you all in the studio. The only people, okay. Even corn is another raw material for flour. Okay, Aki is writing from Bamenda. Now, Dr. Tata, lots and lots of things, but it will take also a policy from the government to get some of the things fixed, because if you say there are some companies out there discouraging home production, these companies out there are working through individuals working with the system in place. We'll need to also look at, I'll go back to our MPs to come up with policies that will protect and encourage home production.
Thank you very much. You see, this is yes, the state has a role to play, just like we also have a role to play. But the role that is to be played by the state does not negate the role that we are to play. So what I would like to say is that Cameroonians, this awakening, you know, Apostle Ambe spoke a lot about the media. I would like to emphasize a lot on that. The media forms part of the population because the media is the voice of the people. So when the voice of the people starts to emphasize on something, because it emphasizes the cry of the people, the need of the people. So you know, like I indicated before, if Prime TV did not focus on Afro Brains from the very beginning,
it would have been difficult for people to even get to realize that it was possible, or it is possible in Cameroon for us to produce all the products that we are producing. So the media has a central role to play. But like I said, the role that the government is supposed to play does not negate what the people are supposed to play. One thing I have realized after living abroad and living amongst others, one thing I've realized is that Africans have a problem of working together. You see, Africans are yet to embrace each other. Look, unity is power. You see, when we talk about Microsoft today, it doesn't mean that it's Bill Gates alone who owns Microsoft. Bill Gates is just one of those, who own Microsoft. Most of them are farmers. There are tons of these companies, Mercedes, BMW, all these companies that people come across, they just glorify the CEOs, but they don't get to realize that these companies are not owned by individuals. These companies are owned by a group of persons. It is important that Cameroonians, especially Cameroonians abroad, because I have lived abroad and I know the possibilities that are existing abroad, especially Cameroonians abroad. It is time for us to start learning how to partner with Cameroonians back in Africa. If we do not create that link, it will be difficult for us to make that jump. We need to be able to, those Cameroonians abroad have to be able to look for a way to work with the Cameroonians in Cameroon for us to make that leap. What do I talk about the leap? You see, industrial revolution seems to have skipped over Africa. Most African countries, Central African countries, West African countries, East and so on, industrial revolution did not take place in Africa. It skipped Africa. So I am specialized in machine building and optimization maintenance. So I train people on how to build machines. Why did I specialize in that? I decided to specialize in that because I realized that it is the missing link, because we have raw materials, we have a natural environment, but we don't have value of it. A lot of people talk about petroleum and talk about those things. Guess what? The most valuable resource that most African countries have right now is the human resource. Remember that 60% of the African population is less than 25 years old. Remember that 60% of the world's arable land, when we talk about arable land, we're talking about the land that can be farmed, that can be cultivated. 60% of the world's arable land is found in Africa. What does this mean? What this means is that Africa's real power can actually come from agriculture. So it is left on the individual nations in Africa to begin to capitalize on the advantages associated with agriculture. That is why AfroBrains Cameroon is putting this forth, is bringing this forward, is making Cameroonians to know that wheat flour is not rocket science. Wheat flour is just one of the flours that we know about. Let companies that are importing wheat flour into Cameroon not come and pretend that they want to encourage the cultivation of wheat flour. If they are serious, let them encourage the cultivation of cassavas, which is already doing well. Let them encourage the cultivation of sweet potatoes, which is already doing well. It takes, like I said, 70 to 80 days to cultivate the Georgia Jet variety of sweet potatoes. Let people not come and deceive us. The time has passed. We are no longer in an age of what? In an industrial age. Is that what I'm supposed to say? We are in an age. We are in the age of information, and the age of information, knowledge is something that everybody has, because you can Google. At fingertip, you can Google. But what matters is how you use the knowledge. So this is very important, and this is what is going to move the youth. Remember that tomorrow, the future of Cameroon depends on the youth. How we handle the youth today is what is going to determine what Cameroon becomes tomorrow. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and you are panelist, Apostle Ambe, my mentor. Please, what about the shortage of beer? Have you ever heard of it happening in Cameroon? Reason, because that is what is keeping us in bondage. The government always makes sure that they produce enough water and all the products concerned. Kevin Kenneth is writing from Douala here. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. How do we start planning for the possibility for our nation not to have even the common ingredients to produce beer, because most of those things are also imported? Should we not?
You know, corn is used to produce beer, and you and I know that there's never been a shortage of corn in this country.
Yeah, but we import corn to these guys import.
Who import corn?
These guys at the brasseries.
Of course, they import.
That's a market, but we cannot admit it because people see the production of corn as one menial job.
Of course, you know, every government lives on taxes. And they will definitely promote the goods that pay high taxes. If you look at it critically, brasseries and Guinness are one of the companies in Cameroon that Cameroon government makes a lot of taxes from. And that's the reason why, despite the increase in the price of beer, Cameroonians say, on va toujours consommer l'alcool. And then the bad thing about alcohol also is that it's addictive. When you start such things and start becoming addicted to them, you are now controlled by the spirit behind the thing, not just by the desire or the passion to drink it anymore. So you realize that many people sometimes also dump their frustration in bottles of beers. When they have tried several things and they cannot work, they finally find a way to take solace in a bottle of beer. Most Cameroonians see it that way, but it's just a temporal solution, as I can put it. Let me put the solution in quotes to those who think it's a solution. It's a temporal solution. They will go and take alcohol to sleep away their troubles, only to get up and see the troubles staring them in the face and still fresh. So we realize that government will tolerate such a thing. How do you explain that there is the danger of smoking cigarette on the pack of cigarette, yet we are still selling it? We are telling us that we are looking for cure for cancer. The cure for cancer is to stop the things that produce cancer. You cannot give me alcohol and you give me cigarette and you say you are looking for cure for cancer. Why don't you stop me from consuming the things that produces cancer? Stop alcohol in the country, stop cigarette in the country, we won't have cancer. But they will let you take alcohol, take cigarette, have cancer, and then they say they are doing chemotherapy. That's the magic of pharmaceutical companies and the magic within governments. If somebody wants to stop something, you prevent it from even coming. I was talking to the church that I said there is a vaccination Christianity and there is a treatment Christianity. It's either you take the word of God as vaccine for sickness not to penetrate you, or you become very weak. When the sickness penetrates, you start looking for means to treat yourself. So that is what we are supposed to do as a nation. If we want alcohol, we know the things that cause cancer in this country. Cigarette consumption causes cancer, alcohol causes cancer. If at all we want to stop cancer, let us stop cigarette and stop alcohol. But how can we stop cigarette and alcohol where huge sums of money come out of it as taxes? And then they start doing chemotherapy. Why don't you just stop it? So it's a mafia. It's a mafia. So there is no way you can tell the government to sideline or push those things out, because those are the things that bring huge amount of money that run most of the other activities in the country. There are sectors in the country that do not produce anything, like the military. The military produces nothing. They are just there to fight and defend. There is no particular thing that they produce that generates income. So it is it's taxes from places like that that sustains the military.
The Genie military that does work.
They work. How many work do they do? How much work do they do in the country? The military gets but temporary contract. We're talking about consistent things that provide income that can be able to sustain the military. For instance, if the Genie military does not work for a year, there's a possibility that they will not pay their workers. So we're talking about the things that generate income. So government cannot jeopardize the well-being of the citizens by stopping the things that generate the income that pays the citizens.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The messages are coming, but good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Peter from Boya. Great support critically for Cameroon to produce and transform products. The main objective is job creating and training, such as entrepreneurship. Cameroon has enough of land that can be used for agricultural activities, leader to a better output of products. So far, the government of Cameroon should encourage entrepreneurship and training centers, which will also lead to a better transformation material. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. God is really giving Africans and especially Cameroonians the opportunity to emerge even before BS 2035. We should stop blaming the government. We already know them now very well. Thank God for people like Dr. Tata who are there to help take us out of the brainwash zone by imparting us with knowledge. We should just get involved, acquire more knowledge on product transformation, and be prepared instead of complaining about the government. I think we should get prepared in case opportunities emerge. Tiku Felix is writing from Boya. Cameroon has been spending some francs CFA 150 billion every year for the importation of wheat in the form of flour, grains, and finished products like cakes, cookies, and biscuits. Note that Cameroon only produces about 254,000 metric tons of wheat. Studies were carried out to increase home production significantly and reduce importation back in 2017 and 2018. Irad had done a lot of research to improve on seed quality and supply, and the groundnut was the main area where studies were done on 50 to 100 hectares of land, but little has been done so far to actually plant. Perhaps those businessmen involved in importation of wheat might be involved in nipping in the big any initiative aimed at improving home production. Stephen Mwambo is writing from Boya. Good evening, sir. Where can we get Afro Brains in Bamenda? Ngwa is writing from Abakwa. Ngwa, you just get to Dr. Tata. He will direct you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I enjoy the program. It's Luis writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Luis. I enjoy your program. In Cameroon, if you start a small company, they will say it is illicit trafficking, and many people cannot afford the tax. Jibril Usmanu writing from Jakiri. Please, for Dr. Tata's number, okay? You can get to him. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your programs. It's very educative. I'm Joel writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Joel. No, can't read that. Not good. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I really enjoy your programs. Mr. Liu, Cameroonians have brilliant ideas as far as agriculture is concerned, but there is just one problem. Cameroonians nowadays are extremely lazy. It is easy to sit at our different corners and say Cameroon can do it, but to bend down and work is a problem. 70% of Cameroonians like white-collar jobs. Mrs. T. Vandolin is writing from Douala. Okay, we are going to be ending at this juncture. Thank you, Apostle, for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you, viewers. It's always a joy to be here.
Dr. Tata, thank you too for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Leo. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And I can begin to realize that they should start eating what they cultivate and cultivate what they eat. Thank you very much.
Okay. We want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of the program. Thank you to Desmond and Eli for producing the program, as well as our broadcasters. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.